So the recent grade 10 placement crisis has exposed structural inequalities in the education system in the country. You know, thousands of learners competed for limited spaces in a small number of high-performing schools, while the majority were placed in under-resourced institutions. Now we are already entering May, and the issue is under the table. No one is talking about it. So we are waiting for the next year, and the issue will repeat itself. So this imbalance reflects long-standing disparities in infrastructure, teacher distribution, funding, and school categorization. And despite progress in expanding access to education, over 1.13 million children remain out of school, and significant region disparities persist in enrollment, completion, and learning outcomes. And the country also faces a teacher shortage of about 100,000, which disproportionately affects rural and marginalized areas. And without deliberate policy reform, educational quality will continue to reinforce social and wealth disparities, limit innovation, and also undermine national development goals or national development. So in this video, I will outline the problem of education inequality in the country and also propose actionable reforms to ensure equitable, high quality education for all learners. So I will start with a short preview of the problem. So the competition for limited spaces in elite schools highlights deep inequality in Kenya's education system. While a small number of schools his, um, historically categorized as national or high-performing institutions attract disproportionate demand. The majority of learners attend sub-county and rural schools with limited infrastructure and teaching capacity. So what are the key quality indicators? This is the what data indicates. Approximately, as I said, approximately 1.13 million children are out of school. That's according to Oxfam Kenya report. Also, around 100,000 teacher shortage nationwide. This affects learning quality. We also have large disparities in year of schooling, and learners in Nairobi County average about 11 years of schooling compared to roughly 5 years in counties such as Turkana. And another indicator is only about 204 top tier, which are categorized as or classified as cluster one or national schools, compared to over 7,000 sub-county schools, demonstrating structural imbalances in quality distribution. And these disparities undermine the principle of equal opportunity, which is enshrined in our constitution and the Basic Education Act. So in the next section, I will cover the root causes of this inequality in our education system. So the first cause of the inequality is the historical inequality. You know, education inequality in Kenya has deep historical roots. During the colonial period, the mission and government schools were concentrated in certain regions, particularly in central and parts of western Kenya. And after independence, while access expanded, disparities in infrastructure, teacher quality and funding persisted across regions. So the next one, or the next course, is the categorization of schools. Kenya classifies schools into national, extra county, we have county, and then we have sub-county institutions. And this categorization has reinforced inequality. National schools are often better funded, better equipped, and attract more qualified teachers. And this categorization creates a hierarchy that channels or channels top performing students into elite schools, while others remain in under-resourced institutions. So the next factor is the heavy politicization of our education system. Education reforms in Kenya have frequently been influenced by political interest rather than long-term policy planning. Political interference has contributed to slow reforms, inconsistent policy implementation, and poor management. And decisions regarding school upgrades, resource allocation, and curriculum reforms sometimes reflect political calculations instead of educational needs. I will create another video on this issue of politicization of our education system and how we can deal with it. So why does it matter? Why education inequality matters, and why we should treat this as a matter of national priority or urgent priority. So number one, educational inequality leads to loss of talent. When students from disadvantaged backgrounds lack access to quality education, their potential remains underdeveloped, and this leads to a national loss of talent and reduced productivity. So the next one is that educational inequality leads to low innovation and productivity. You know, the country's innovation capacity depends on the quality of its education, or the innovation capacity of any country depends on the quality of its education system. And inequality limits exposure to quality science, labs, technology, and mentorship, and this reduces opportunities or limits opportunities for creative and scientific advancements. So the next one is, or the next issue is persistent social inequality. Education, education, education is a major pathway to social mobility, and unequal access to quality education reinforces existing social and regional inequality. And the fourth one is the widening wealth inequality or income inequality. You know, students from well-resourced schools are more likely to access competitive university programs and high-paying careers, while those from poorly equipped schools face limited opportunity. And this cycle perpetuates wealth disparity and poverty across generations. So what are the policy recommendations? What are the solutions that we should do? What should we do to address this issue? So one of the policy recommendations is that we should end the categorization of schools. The government should progressively eliminate this classification of schools, like national schools, and ensure that all public schools receive equal infrastructure, development, and resource allocation. The next one, we should establish equal standards across all schools. Uniform national standards should guide classroom design, laboratory facilities, libraries, and technology access and student-teacher ratios to ensure equity in our learning environment. So the third one is to reduce politicization of our education sector. Education policy should be guided by professional educators and policy experts rather than political interest. And long-term planning and evidence-based reforms are essential, and the Ministry of Education should be the one to oversee school development, infrastructure expansion, quality assurance, and resource management across Kenya to ensure accountability and consistency. I'll cover this one on the issue of, or the topic of depoliticizing our education system in details in my next video. So the fourth one is to pool resources to support truly free education. The government should consolidate education funding mechanisms to fully support free primary and secondary education, and this will ensure adequate capitation and infrastructure development. So the fifth one is to increase investment in teacher training. I know we have made progress in this one. Quality teachers are central to quality education, and expanding teacher training programs, improving their pay, and ensuring equitable distribution of teachers across regions will enhance learning outcomes. So the sixth one is to review and strengthen the CBC. The ongoing implementation of the CBC should be reviewed to address challenges related to infrastructure, teacher preparedness, learning materials, and assessment methods. And equity considerations must guide curriculum reforms. So that's all for the policy recommendations. And now to conclude, the Grade 10 placement crisis is a reminder of the need to address systemic inequality in Kenya's education system. And without both reforms, disparities in school quality will continue to limit opportunity and widen wealth gaps. Improved funding, standardized infrastructure, teacher investment, and government reform can transform education into a genuine equalizer. So Kenya, Kenya's long-term economic competitiveness in the global market and also in our regional markets and social cohesion in our country, within the country, depends on ensuring that every child, regardless of region or background, has access to quality education. So that's all for me. My name is David.